Hey, and welcome back to a brand new section. We're going to be talking about internal and external JavaScript. Real quick and dirty lecture here just to get you started. And what we're going to jump right in. First, I want you to do is create a new folder on your desktop or wherever you wish called JS for JavaScript. And in that folder, what we're going to do is add the normalized.css file just so we can have cleaner looking text and stuff on the page. We're not going to do any major CSS styling in here, except for when JavaScript does the styles, but we'll get to that. And create a new file called internal-external.html. In all honesty, you can call it whatever you want, but to be consistent so you don't get lost with me here, internal-external.html. And basically add the basic structure, give it a title, and hook in that normalized.css. So here we are. If you're not caught up yet, go ahead, pause the video and do what you need to do. And here we go. So we're going to talk about internal and external JavaScript. So basically, there are three ways of doing JavaScript, kind of like CSS. There's internal, inline, and external. But I'm not going to talk about inline because it's kind of archaic and you shouldn't really do it. It's basically putting your JavaScript within the HTML tags, but that's just super messy, and we're not going to even mess with that because you won't do that, and you shouldn't. But internal is acceptable and external is best practice. So we're going to start with internal JavaScript. It just basically looks like, you adding JavaScript within the page here, within your HTML, not within the tags, but within the HTML. Now, before we start, it's always best practice to add scripts, JavaScripts, to the bottom of the page. So down right before the closing body tag. Now, some developers have different opinions on this, but I think it's pretty commonly accepted or widely accepted that your scripts should be at the very bottom of the page, below your or before your closing body tag. And the reason being, you want it to load in the DOM, the document object model, last. So when your web page loads or your website loads, you want everything to load first, so HTML, CSS, any links, and your content, and then load your JavaScript. The reason being, because sometimes JavaScript takes a long time to load. Sometimes there's a lot of assets or there's a lot of code that it needs to render depending on what you're doing. And if you load that first, you could have a really slow loading page, especially if you're loading a lot of scripts, or it might run your script first before everything loads, and it could really wreak havoc on the user experience of your page. And so we'll cover this sort of stuff as we go through this section. But first, let me just introduce you to internal JavaScript. So right here, I'm going to start off with the script tag. And of course, you close the tag, and you should add, it's not necessary, but you should add the attribute type, and that would be text/JavaScript. And within your script tag, I'm just going to add some simple JavaScript, and we'll talk about the syntax in an upcoming lecture. But right now, we're just going to straight up type some JavaScript. So document get element by ID, and then in parentheses, and then in strings output. So right now, I'm in the document, I'm looking for an element with the ID of output, which we haven't set up yet, but we will. Dot inner HTML, whoops, no H, equals, and then I'm just going to add a couple strings here. This text was created with internal JavaScript. And then you close that, you end that with a semicolon. So right here, it's saying in the document, so the document object model, the highest level here, dot get element by ID. So get the element with the ID of output, and then dot inner HTML. So this is going to go to edit the inner HTML of this ID, and then add the string of text. This text was created with internal JavaScript. Well, of course, this isn't going to work because we don't have an element with the ID of output yet. So let's start off and add just a level 1 heading, and we'll say internal ampersand external JavaScript. And now let's add a paragraph tag and give it the ID of output and leave it empty because JavaScript will do the rest. So save it and view that in your browser. And here it is, internal and external JavaScript. This text was created with internal JavaScript. And if you look at your source, Here it is, paragraphed. Never mind the attribute here. That's just automatically created with brackets because this is a live browser view. ID output. This text was created with internal JavaScript. So it adds HTML straight in the content. So pretty cool. So that is internal JavaScript. Now, external JavaScript, what we want to do is link it using, again, a script tag, but link an external file, kind of like in CSS. Now, the reason you want to do this is because, remember we talked about HTML is for the meaning or the content of the website, and CSS is for the presentation. So HTML is for content, CSS is for the design, essentially. And now JavaScript is for the behavior of the web page. So just kind of to recap, the HTML is simply your content. It has the meaning, it's using HTML tags for semantics and literally has words and images simply for the content. If you stripped CSS and HTML and JavaScript away, you'd still have a perfectly usable, readable content. CSS makes it look nice. It's for the presentation, how it is presented in the browser. And JavaScript is for behavior. Now, behavior means how the website behaves, how the elements might behave, how it behaves when the user interacts with the website. So things like maybe pop-up windows or images rotating or images swapping. If you click on an element, if you were to hover over something, maybe a tooltip pops up or maybe a drop-down menu, things like that. That's behavior. And those are elements or behaviors that are not necessary or required to use and consume the content on the website. They're simply embellishments that improve the user experience, but your website should not be completely reliant on JavaScript. So keep that in mind. Okay, so now what we're going to do is hook in that external JavaScript. So basically all we need to do is just, we need to create a new file, and let's call it script.js. Now, JS is the extension you need to use for JavaScript. Here we go. Little comment. The comment is the same as CSS, // asterisk, your text, asterisk, and then /. That is your multi-line comment. You can have comment text on multi-lines, and it will stay within the comment and not show up within the script or the web page. And now go back to your internal, external, and now we need to hook that in. So again, at the bottom of your page, so now what we need to say is type, again, text/JavaScript. And then now source, src, is the attribute we need to use for this one. And then we need to hook in script.js. And that's it. Again, at the bottom of the page, so it loads last in the DOM. Here's our script.js. Now let's just hook in some JavaScript here. So I'm just going to, again, I'm going to not teach you technically how to do this yet, but I'm just going to add some JavaScript. So var for variable, let's say current date equals new date. And then we're going to say window alert, and we're going to alert that current date. Okay, now if we go back to our browser here and refresh, there we go. We have an alert. Thursday, June 4th, 2015, 12:05 General Mountain Time, MDT. There we go. So that is an alert, and it pops up when you refresh the page, like so. And there we go. So that is our external JavaScript. This is our internal JavaScript right here. I'll make a little comment. This is internal JavaScript. And down here, external JavaScript. And one more comment. JavaScript always loads last. And so that's it for the internal external JavaScript lecture. We got a lot more JavaScript coming up. We're going to dive into the syntax and learn how you actually code JavaScript so you can understand and use it in your web pages.